What is up, my nerd herders? Welcome back to the channel. I am the Crowlector, and as you can see, we have in front of us a wide breadth of Star Wars Black Series figures. I've been stockpiling these guys over the last couple weeks. A lot of them I got on a visit home a couple weeks ago, and have been saving them for a special occasion to review. We have a lovely little mix of old figures that have been redone, some new figures, some new looks for old characters, things like that. In this review, I'm going to be looking at the new, long-awaited Jedi Temple Guard. This is one I've been waiting for a long time, so let's not waste any more of it, shall we? And here we have the long-awaited Jedi Temple Guard. Now, this is a somewhat recent acquisition on my part. I got this separate from all the other ones in the bunch, so I do still have the box for this lovely guy here. So we can go ahead and take a look at that now. Get the nice, pretty standard Galaxy rainbow packaging for today. A really nice glamour shot of our guard there. And the bio, an ancient honored heritage within the hallowed halls of the Jedi Temple was the role of the Jedi Temple Guard. They carried imposing, thick, double-bladed weapons that produced a rare and distinctive yellow blade. And I gotta say, the yellow blades are probably my favorite. I first remember seeing them, I think it was Episode 1, Jedi Power Battles with Plo Koon, even though I know that the modern canon Plo Koon has a blue lightsaber, I still really prefer my Plo with a yellow one. I just think something about the yellow blade, you know, the wisdom, the sense of honor and preservation, that it really just fits with Plo's character. But taking a look at the figure itself, this guy is admittedly quite beautiful. You really get a sense of honor and duty with this guy. Very crisp, very clean, white and kind of tan colors, and a really nice job on the gold paint. It has the appropriate amount of shine. And these are, I believe, little sculpted bits. It's a little hard to tell. There's not much of a raise to them. It almost feels like part of the cloak, but it is a separate little sculpt. Same with the mask as well. Now, the hoods on these guys are somewhat thicker plastic. It is soft enough to be pliable, but it's not your traditional kind of soft plastic or fabric, which I don't mind because it definitely helps hold the shape a bit, but does, of course, limit the movement you get out of the head, but we'll discuss that a bit later. What I do love is the mask itself and these sculpted bits of the gold. There is definitely a time in Hasbro's output where if we had gotten this guy any sooner, this sculpted bit would probably just be paint work or like a decal or something. But the fact that they did take the time to sculpt it is really, really nice. I always loved just how grand and ornate their masks are, kind of removing any bits of individuality and identity, which, you know, you could get into the metaphors and everything there with the Jedi Order as a whole, and really kind of toes the line between grand and peaceful, and with just like the slightest hint of underlying mystery and, I don't want to say evilness, but you know what I mean, with the little eye slits. Something a little inhuman about it. Just the pale color. Very, very cool though. And it does extend appropriately across the mask with the little ear disc thingies there. And same with this little bit on the tunic there. It is sculpted into the tunic, just a slight raise. I like that we get a little splash of color to add to the off-white. And there is a separate piece between this first kind of overlay and the shoulder pieces where you get some more gold sculpting. Can't really see it too much. This does sit, again, pretty tightly against the shoulders, but it's certainly meant to just stay there and peek out. Though, again, you know, they took the time to sculpt and paint the parts even under the tunic that you're probably not going to see. There's a time, like I said, with the mask where Hasbro probably would have just like stopped there, where that first layer meets the other one and not do anything else underneath, but they really took that time. And same with these little dangly bits. I don't know exactly what they are, if they're keys or something like that. I would imagine maybe like keys to the Jedi Temple. But nevertheless, they are all kind of individually sculpted and individually painted with the gold and the silver, soft enough that they're going to have a nice amount of give if you want to stretch the legs out, but they're not going to snap off. However, I do think that with enough force, you could probably pull these guys off. So, especially if you have maybe a youngster, a youngling playing with this guy, maybe just have them be a little careful around the waist. But even still, the fact that they are all sculpted, are all individual little rubber pieces and individually painted is very, very nice as well. The gold is very, very striking and one of my favorite parts of this guy in general. With the boots, you have those nice big knee pads, knee guards, lighter brown, tan on the boots. It's just a really, really cool design. I've always loved the design of the temple guards, where most of the Jedi are kind of that darker brown. These ones have almost a High Republic look to them, with the white and the tan and the gold. Really gives you the sense that these guys are old. And if they're not old, they at least, stick to the old ways, the traditions of the Jedi. There's no room for any sort of compromise or newness or anything like that. Articulation-wise, he's pretty good. Or I suppose they are very good. I don't technically know that this is a man. This could be anyone you want it to be, technically. As previously stated, though, you don't get much movement in the head. It's pretty much just back and forth. A little bit of upward, downward, but the harder plastic hood is really going to hinder that. Same with the neck as well. It's almost just kind of there for show. It would have been cool if they could have made the hood like a separate piece that could have swiveled alongside of it. I don't know if that would have really broken up the sculpt at all, so I can see why they wouldn't. Shoulder-wise, you're gonna get pretty standard T range. There's a little bit of upward give, but he's not gonna really be able to hold anything above their head. This is about as big as you can go. And then same with the forward movement. It starts to kind of catch that little bit of plastic right there. So you could flare it out a bit to get a little bit more upward, but that's what you get. And just be aware that over time, this may start to kind of bend and warp depending on how you have them posed. I think the default look for a lot of these are just going to be like the regal standing, guarding a doorway kind of pose, but they do get into fights every now and then when absolutely necessary. Some nice sculpting on the arm gauntlets here as well. And luckily, they don't really hinder the arm movement that much. And these guys are on the new ball jointed wrist as well. Just because of the little sculpted armor bit there and the color, I don't know if there's really anyone else that you could swap out these hands with currently. So keep them to themselves. But it is nice to see this articulation implemented again. I do really, for the most part, like it. I think you get maybe a little bit more range, a little bit more character than with just the typical swivel hinge. The waist, though, gets a fair amount of motion on that ball joint. And because there is both a plastic and a fabric skirt, really doesn't hinder the forward motion of the leg at all. Just a little bit for the sideways. That's about as much as you're going to get unless you kind of pull up the fabric skirt, but then it starts to look a little unnatural, a little bunched in the back. I really like the kind of more robed look, so I prefer to keep these down. Seems to be pretty much just a single joint on the knee, which is fine. Again, because of the skirt, you're not going to really want to flare them out too much in the back. There is no boot cut on these guys, which is a bit of a bummer. There's no thigh cut as well, so I do think they would have benefited from a little bit more of that kind of side-to-side motion. And then your pretty standard boot ankle, no real upward movement. You do get a little bit downward, rock side to side. So not the most articulated figure. But again, because these guys are sort of known for their regalness and their restraint, you're going to want to probably keep them just relatively vanilla. But even still, with all the specks of gold, the designs, the sculpt, everything, even in a kind of basic pose, this guy's going to have a lot of presence. Accessory-wise, all you get is this saber. And again, kind of harkening back to the old Republic, or I'm sorry, the High Republic ways with the very simple, just gold and silver, kind of coppery in the middle there. Nothing too flashy, but still letting you know that these guys are a little bit more elevated in their status in the order. You get the nice double-bladed yellow saber. I'm glad that we have another yellow saber in the line. We haven't really gotten an official release of Rey's yellow saber yet, I don't think. Just that blue one. I know a couple places have offered like a custom yellow saber. I have not yet ordered any of those, but I might, especially for like a second plo. But still, it's a nice, unique sculpt for a saber. It does have the little peg so that if you wanted to, you could peg it into the side of the guard there, but I think they look so cool just holding it kind of aloft, if you will. It's not often that, you really see a lightsaber used all the time, and in constant on position. So just having them hold it side to side is my preferred choice. What's a Jedi without their lightsaber? Why would you want to keep it on their belt? Just in case you wanted to, that's what this is going to look like. Still very nice, still very imposing, but doesn't quite have the same oomph that the one with the saber has. Luckily, the blades were pretty easy in terms of taking them out. I tend to have better luck, it seems, with the longer pegs on these sabers. I know I've made it clear before my frustration with some of the sabers in the Black Series line. Very kind of inconsistent in the quality. Luckily, these guys have the nice thick plastic for the saber hilt, same as like Cal Kestis, and then the longer pegs for the saber blades, which I find have a little bit better luck whenever they take a topple. Might be a little bit easier to snap off, but I tend to have better luck. The shorter ones tend to bend a lot easier for me, and so that's when I have those kind of crooked, wonky sabers. More than likely, I'm probably just going to keep the blades in on these guys because, I mean, come on, look at them. They just look so cool side by side with their sabers acting as, sort of quasi spears. You really cannot go wrong. This is one like with the clones where you have to have at least two, if not more. I only have two for the time being, but I could easily see myself getting even more of these, especially if you wanted to do something like individualize them a bit more. Maybe with our guy, the Grand Inquisitor, since he was a Jedi Temple Guard at one point, pop the head off of him, put it on there, whatever you want to do. I also brought out Dagan Gera from Survivor, just because his robes remind me a lot of the Jedi Temple Guards. Again, with that kind of High Republic white and tannish brown, gold, very similar style. They look like they were brought up together. Or that if you were to take off this mask, you might see Dagan underneath there. Especially with how much he upholds the old ways in Jedi Survivor, I would not be surprised to hear that he was, at least in the running, to be a Jedi Temple Guard at one point. But I think that'll about do it for this review. It feels really good to finally check another, what feels like needed Black Series figure off of our lists. Let me know down below, how many of these guys are you picking up for your display? Are you sticking with just two, or are you going to have a whole army of them? Also, let me know what Jedi you would like to see next in the line. I know we're getting Barriss Offee later this year, but who else? Personally, I would really like to finally see Saesee Tiin and Agent Kolar. We need to finally complete that office duel. And then, for the most part, with maybe some notable background exceptions, I think I'd be pretty good on Jedi. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will be back soon with more creepy Crow-lection content, but in the meantime, don't forget, stay spooky.